There's one. There's one. Not a big fish, but it's a bass. He ate that jig. Come on, son. Boy, look at all the algae. Boy, do we have a treat today, folks. We just stepped out on the lake and I caught my first fish already. We are at a lake I have never been at before. Horseshoe, next to Bartlett, here in Arizona. I just wanted to make sure I said it was next to Bartlett, because when you say horseshoe for us White Mountain folks, we're thinking of Horseshoe Seneca, where we have the trout fishing, but this is a different horseshoe lake. Great bass fishery from what I understand when the lake is full, which is very rare. We launched our boats from a primitive type ramp, and there's not a whole lot of people out here. Heard that the lake was 60 to 80% full, so we thought, man, let's go out there and see if we can't get bit on something. And with it being high bluebird skies, we're out here a little late morning. We didn't get here for the bright early bite. I thought I'd just pick up a jig. Usually my safe bet, if the water's calm like this, you have no wind, I'll just pick up a jig or a Texas rig or something like that and just see if I can get bit, just going down the bank on some of this rock stuff. This lake isn't even mapped out by our maps. I'm actually recording right now as I'm kind of going along on my Garmin to map out the lake a little bit. But you're gonna join me today to find out what it's gonna take to catch some fish on a lake I've never been on. And they don't hold tournaments here or anything, so I've never been on this lake. It's so far away from where I live, never even thought about fishing it. But I got some great friends, Kevin Finley from Signature Gate, and I'll tell you, he's out here, and he told me, Johnny, you gotta go out there and just check this place out. It's really cool. So we're here. I know he's out on the water somewhere, but we're gonna fish this lake and see what we can't do, see if we can catch a few fish. I hear there's some nice ones in here, but we're gonna find out in just a few minutes, hopefully. Got him. Got that one. That one feels a little better. Oh yeah, look at the size of that one, folks. That's the way to get things started right here. Oh yeah. Oh man, he's got some shoulders now. Look at that fish. Oh my goodness, and he ate that jig. That's when you know you're throwing the right thing right there. Look at that. Ah! Look how he swallowed that jig. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is a beautiful bass right here at Horseshoe. Oh my gosh, this could be a fun day. That was like 3 casts after the last one. Oh, you know, I heard they were catching a few on worms and jigs out here. I really wanted to start with some reaction, but man, with it being so calm and slick, I just wanted to get bit and just kind of mull down the bank a little bit and see what we can't do. So far, what I found on this edge, we have a lot of rock here and it's really steep. So I'm throwing right up on the bank and dragging it off. That's all I'm doing. Little 1/2 ounce jig. It's a pumpkin colored one with that little chigger craw, Berkeley chigger craw on the back of it. Pretty safe bet, you know, when you don't, you know the crawdads are in here, but when you don't know what to do on a lake, a lot of times, I really like to cover a lot of water when I first see the lake and see what's going on, but we started fishing right away. I couldn't stand it. I'm like, let's just start fishing, see what happens. I'm kind of getting a feel for what's going on. Difference in a couple of kind of jigs that I like to throw. You know, we're fishing this heavy rock and I've never been to this lake before, and it feels really bouldery down there. And with all the boulders and stuff like that down there, a lot easier to get hung up. I like to go something with a weed guard like this. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing that, is not only with the weed guard, but if you take the weed guard and just kind of pull it out on each side a little bit away from the hook, sideways like that, spread that weed guard out a little bit, it allows the bait that when it falls down in those rocks, to roll and the hook point doesn't catch the rock all the time, and you can pop that bait out of there. That's one of the reasons I like to use something with a brush guard and a living rubber skirt or something like that. Now, if I'm fishing kind of a sandy beach area, or I'm fishing pebbled rock, things like that, I like to go with a spider jig. That's what this is here, is just a spider jig. And I'll rig that up, and man, this is a lot of fun to throw too, but you can also swim this bait. A spider jig has these little twin tails on the end that when you hop it up and bring it back down, they are so quick, and you get a lot of reaction bites out of this particular jig right here, and I really like it. But I won't use the exposed hook like this unless I know I'm not gonna get hung up constantly. If I'm in tight areas with a lot of rock, trees, things like that, then I'm gonna go with the brush guard. And you know, a lot of times anywhere from a 1/2 ounce or a 3/8 ounce to a 1/2 ounce is good for me for the kind of waters that we're fishing. But if I'm fishing clear water, that spider jig is the way to go. Green pumpkin, something like that's a great color with this particular bait. Both of them work well. But in today's deal, I have to go with this particular bait with 17-pound test line. If I'm fishing that spider jig, let's say at Lake Mead, then I'm gonna be throwing like a 12 or 14-pound test line. Get it down there quicker, deeper, and you know, I don't know if the fish are line weary or not, but it seems like I do better with the 12 or 14. And plus the hooks are a lot thinner and sharper. This particular hook's got a big old gnarly hook on it, so I want to throw 17 with that, and that makes a huge difference. And anything in a crawdad pattern is great, but always remember, even when you're throwing jigs, if you feel they're really eating shad a lot, then you better be throwing something like a smoked sparkle or a white or something like that. Will work really good, and you'll still catch a lot of fish hopping those things off the bottom or coming out of the rocks, and they'll eat it. Got him. Got that one. Oh, he's a good one. Oh, he's a good one. Man, there's some monsters in here. Oh. All right. Come on, son. Yeah. Look at the size of that jigfish. Sometimes things just work out the way you want them to. Look at that. Beautiful bass right here. Horseshoe Lake. First time I've ever been here. We went right around the corner from where we caught those other two, and managed to catch that one. What blows me away about this body of water right now, and I just started fishing it, is the quality of fish so far. Caught that first one that was a small one, but the reality is we're not that far from Bartlett. And these fish seem to be averaged bigger than what you catch at Bartlett. This is fun. You know, this is a real steep bank right here. I'm in 23 foot of water, and I'm throwing up along the ledges there. That's where I just caught that one. It's a pretty safe bet, especially when you figure, I'm thinking this is probably after the spawn for sure. There might be a few left. We got this algae that's growing up, and it's gonna get worse throughout the day. It just does. It's the light level, it comes up. It's not a golden algae, it's a green algae. And it's not gonna affect these fish because it's on the top layer of the lake. Down below, it's probably a lot clearer. But, and then like I said, calm, slick day. If it was blowing wind, we probably would have started with some crankbaits or something like that and just covered a lot of water. But hey, with those kind of fish, I'll just go ahead and keep jigging. You know, I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce jig, and the thing is, if you're getting hung up a lot with a lot of these rocks, you can go to a smaller jig like a 1/4 ounce. If you're fishing, if you're finding that the fish are right on the bank, you don't really need that 1/2 ounce. You can go with like a 1/4 ounce and not get hung up as much, especially around big boulder rock, you know, where you've got the big chunk rock. But I like using the 1/2 ounce because then I can pull it out a little bit deeper on points and ledges and things like that and let it sink down and fall. The other thing is when you're throwing this bait, it's not a hard bait to work. It's pretty much throw it out there, you let it fall to the bottom. Once it falls to the bottom, now because we do have all this chunk rock, I'm not just sweeping my rod tip. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of barely, if you can see me kind of shake the rod tip up a little bit over those rocks. Otherwise it gets hung up in those rocks for me, and then you're breaking it off. But you can kind of feel yourself bounce over the rocks a little bit, but you just want the bait to kind of come up over the rock, sit, come up over the rock, and do that 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, but you don't want a big swing like this and then let it fall. You want to be able to just count the rocks, bring it over top of the rocks, let it sit. And the reason why I'm shaking the rod tip a lot of times is to make sure that I shake it over the top of a rock instead of it getting hung. It helps keep it from getting hung as I'm bringing it. And you want to move it inches at a time. You're not wanting to move it feet at a time. So when you throw it out there, you let it fall. Once it falls, I'll start dragging it. Now the first thing I do is I just kind of pick up on my rod tip, but if I start feeling that real rock and it's trying to get hung, I'll just kind of pop it just a little bit and then let it sit. A lot of times when you pop it like that too, it initiates a strike from a bass, and you might just get bit doing that, especially when you bring it by a rock. You got to keep it by the rock, so you don't want to pull away from the rock and go, I don't want to get hung. You got to be close to it to get the fish to bite, because a lot of times that's where they're hanging. Got it. I got that one. We might have figured something out here. He's not a big one, but we found a spot with some trees in it. And when you find trees like this with shade, look out. You're talking my kind of fishing. That's just a little guy. I caught him on the Ica. Got him. I got that fish. Oh, little guy, right off that pole. I was dragging that jig and I caught that little dude. Well, they got little fish in here too. Catching a couple of little ones. You know, we went up in the trees and he ate that big jig. Look at that. That's a good sign though. And we went up in there. I just didn't feel it back in there. I fished quite a bit in those trees, flipped around a little bit, threw some stuff in there, caught some little ones, and said, let's go back out and do some jigging. I felt like we were catching bigger fish off the jig, so that's kind of what I'm gonna do. And I came over more towards the steeper area, down here towards the dam, and just see what happens around these rocks. Got him. That's a good fish. Yeah. All right, that's the kind we're looking for, folks. Little jig fish. He came back out and caught us a jig fish. Come on. Look at that algae. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, come on. All right, you're done. You're done. I'll let you take it, but you didn't get it very good, but you got it. There are some healthy fish in this lake. Let me tell you. Well, we went back to jigging and managed to catch a little bit bigger fish. You know, I threw that Ica around a little bit, something weightless around those trees, caught a few small ones. But I think that, you know, finding this rocky banks like this, and it's a steep lake, so getting up there on the bank and then just bringing it off on some of these points is really good. One thing that I know deters a lot of people is they see all this algae and they think, oh, the whole lake is just, how do they see the bait? But you saw as the fish came up how it actually, if you move your bait around right here, it clears the water up and you can see real good underneath. So there's a layer there on top that's got that algae bloom, but it doesn't stop the fish from hitting. Hey folks, for my tip of the week, one thing really important when you do get in this algae bloom, and most all lakes will do it, and it happens throughout the year, but the light penetration underneath the water will be like it's nighttime to the bass a lot of times. You know, it'll be a nice mat underneath there. So I really recommend you go with some darker colors, some dull colors, black and blue, you know, the green pumpkin, something like that, something a little bit darker down there where they can see it real good. For some reason, those darker colors really work when you're in this algae, and I'll tell you, you'll catch a lot of them. If you're using more of the clear style baits, something that's a little bit clearer, you probably won't do as well as you will like the blacks, the browns, the dark greens, things like that. So it's a good tip. If you get these mats like this, remember, it might be a little darker under the water. If we had an edge, that'd be different. If it was creating shade, but this whole lake is full of this algae, so it's like blocking a lot of the sunlight underneath. Got him. Come on, dude. He was right up on the bank. But he was a smaller one. Get up in here. Ah, he ate that jig though. He was right up on the bank. You know, tackling a new body of water is a lot of fun for me. I enjoy it. I mean, I haven't had a chance to do this in a long time. Actually get on something that I've never fished. And, you know, I tell you, this has been fun here today. But I can tell you this, when you start, a lot of times people are like, well, where do you start? Where do you start? You know, I started right at the ramp today. I didn't know where to go. This lake has no markings on my graph that tells me where the high and low spots are, so I was trying to run real careful today. And then on top of that, I wanted to find some place, and the reason why I chose the jig was because we had, you know, the high pressure going on, slick water, and we weren't here early enough for me to really try to see some top water. So what I ended up doing was I ended up going to a jig, and normally when you throw a jig, which is imitating a crawdad, where do crawdads like to be? They like to be in this chunk rock. As you can see, this bank right here. And we're going down the areas that have some of that chunk rock. It's not a sheer ledge. It's, you know, finding an area where I keep my boat in 20 to, you know, 18 to 22 foot of water. And then you're just finding that chunk rock. That's where the crawdads like to live. So your odds are better when you do that. So finding water like that is what I've opted to do. Now, I've gone to some trees that were submerged, and I threw some weightless stuff out there like I would do, say, at Roosevelt or something like that, and catch some big fish once in a while. But it just, I didn't feel it. It just wasn't happening there. And I felt really good about catching some big fish on a jig. So we opted to come back out and just start fishing other parts of the lake here and just keep throwing that jig, find this chunk rock, and see if we can catch some fish. I don't like the algae bloom, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not letting it bother me today because I just want to try to catch some jig fish on a body of water I've never fished. We've almost covered this whole lake, and in certain areas, and it's a beautiful little lake, that's for sure. Horseshoe's a beautiful little lake. Well, I'll tell you what, I've had a blast. It was a nice little drive in here, I'll tell you for sure, on that dirt road. You gotta take it slow. But man, it's been peaceful out here. Peace and quiet, gather your thoughts, catch some fish. I'll tell you what, Horseshoe Lake, but double check to see where the status is as far as the depth of water and can you launch. That's very important. But I've had a blast on this lake, learning something new. I can't wait to come try this place when it's like this, with a low pressure system where the fish are just on fire, man. I bet it's a blast because there's some nice quality fish, and we caught some today in this lake. Thanks for joining us on the show. We'll see you next week. I'm Johnny Johnson. Now, see, that's what I'm talking about, folks.